Next, we have Cece Bevin from Bevin Bells, and Craig Dory I think, will also be talking with her. So, Cece, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? I'm very excited to see you today presenting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Conrad. Craig, I don't know if you wanted to jump in first, or do you want me to just go ahead and carry on?
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Craig.
Okay, so I will. I'll just take a minute to set the stage here for Cece's talk. As part of my path that I took to become a certified road mapping professional for CESMII, I worked with Jim Wetzel, who guided me through the process with Bevin Bells to do their road mapping activity, and it was a fantastic opportunity to work with a small company and help them take that next step. And Cece will talk about how she found out about CESMII and the process they took to get through that. But the bottom line is, it was a fantastic opportunity to work with Cece and her team, especially Ben Favreau, and help them, uncover things that they probably already knew, but needed to kind of put some structure to get them thinking about how they want to take those next steps to grow their company and do a number of things that CESMII or that Cece will talk about. And we also, and I think Cece will talk about this a little bit too, we also introduced them to the MEP in Connecticut to help them get started with some value stream mapping, and most importantly, some industry connections, industry association connections that they needed to have to take those some of the more broad next steps with their growth and development charter. So, Cece, take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Conrad and Craig, and it's certainly been an amazing experience. I hope everyone can see my screen okay. I just took over so I could advance my slides.
Yep, we can see that.
Okay, great. So Bevin Brothers Manufacturing is a very old company. We're just embarking close to being 200 years old. And this company was started in 1832 by four brothers, my triple great-grandfather, making me sixth generation in this business. So as you can imagine, we are a company that is, got a lot of room to grow and a lot of things that we can do in the world of smart manufacturing and advancing our operation. So, just to give you another little sense of our background, we are primarily have two lines of business, and one is bells, and we are the only manufacturer of bells in the United States. And everybody always wonders, bells, what kind of bells do you make? But we do everything from cowbells and Christmas ornaments and hand bells that, people might call teacher bells, the bells that are used in boxing matches. And in this day and age, that bell is used in every mining operation in the world as a safety device. We have bells that are sold all throughout Latin America for food trucks and things like that. It was our bell in the movie It's a Wonderful Life when Clarence gets his wings, and the tree was a Bevin bell. So we have a lot of history in bells, and that's what everybody's always interested in. But the half of our business that is making the money for us and that has the most opportunity for growth is our cylinder business. And we make cylinders that hold compressed gas. And those cylinders are roughly the size of, let's say, a home fire extinguisher. And those cylinders are made by cutting tubing, forming tubing. We have welding machines that weld the tubes. We paint them. And at the end of the day, you might end up with a cylinder similar to this red one in the bottom corner. So that business is completely different than our bell business. So we have a very unique business going on that has a lot of different demands on it, a lot of products that maybe aren't super high volume. but still need to be made. Others are higher volume. So there's a lot of challenges that we face in that. If we were just stamping out one kind of widget all day long, it would be a completely different set of challenges. So to talk a little bit about our journey with this whole process, it started by us going to an East Tech conference little over a year ago. And at that conference, Conrad and Jim were presenting smart manufacturing. And so we thought, well, let's go take a look at what smart manufacturing is all about. No idea really what that's about or how to even get started with it. And as part of that process, they talked about the assessment that you can take. And so Ben Favreau, who's my head of production, and myself, we went back to our factory and we took the assessment, which is quite an undertaking. It takes a reasonable amount of time, but it's very, very thoughtful, and it forces you to sort of really think about where you are and what you're doing. And that, I can't remember how long it took, but probably at least an hour a piece to do that assessment. And after we got done with that, why is my screen not advancing? We got a call from Conrad and Jim, and I think Craig, you got involved at that point to talk about our assessment. And here's how we looked. And you can see that we're very clearly in the reactive to sort of aware phase of things. But, for a company as old as ours, it can feel overwhelming, but these guys were great and felt like, no worries, we've got you. We're going to help you figure this whole smart manufacturing thing out. So once we got the results of our assessment, the next step was to have a series of meetings to talk about not only the results of the assessment, but what's it going to look like moving forward. And so there's this, framework that they walk us through. And so we've gotten through the sort of, exploring this to assessing where we are, to then focusing on where we needed to go, and then ultimately to create a roadmap that was going to help us get there. And as we started to look at this and think this whole thing through, we recognized that we really have, a handful of goals that we're trying to accomplish. First and foremost, when we turned 200 in 2032, we want to look at our business as being 3 times the size that it is now. And that's not just 3 times, it is top line, 3 times growth, but also to do that in a profitable way with a minimum of a 15% margin. So we have those hard numbers that we're driving for. We also wanted to get ahead of major bottlenecks and other hindrances. So we knew that if we're going to triple our business, there's going to be major things that have to happen in the factory and things that we were going to do. But again, as I said, we weren't even sure what's the best first step on this journey called smart manufacturing. What's going to make the most sense for us financially, that's going to deliver the best value, that's really going to help us as we go through this process. And so, as I'm saying, what are the most, impactful first steps that we can do? So we, in addition to a series of phone calls and virtual meetings, Jim and Craig have been out to the factory several times and met with us, including a full day brainstorming offsite session. Craig introduced us to mind mapping, and we had a great time looking at things like, we want to kill bottlenecks. What does that mean? Well, external partners can be a bottleneck. Forming our cylinders can be a bottleneck. How do we double that capacity? Welding our cylinders can be a bottleneck. How do we double that capacity? And starting to go through all of the things that could become bottlenecks that we need to think about. If we're looking at a single source of truth and talking about, the data and the information we need in order to be making decisions, and that everybody's operating from the same level playing field and understanding, what does a data structure even look like for us? Do we even have the right, starting ground to look at a single source of truth by collecting the correct data? Inventory is a huge issue for us in terms of automation and automated inventory tracking. We do it all by hand right now, and it's a very laborious process. So starting to figure out some of those things. So after this full day session and coming up with all of our ideas and thoughts and next steps, Craig and Jim went back and put together this roadmap. I mean, this is something we all contributed to, but they helped us with a structure of how to look at this and address it. And ultimately, we have 4 major pillars that we're working against: business sustainability and growth, no bottlenecks, a single source of truth, and smooth operations. And so I thought I could just take you through those different pillars. When we look at business sustainability and growth, we had to, obviously, if we think we're going to triple our business by 2032, what does that look like? And so our cylinders, as I mentioned, are our biggest opportunity for expansion in selling. But one of the other things we're discovering is how much of our metal stamping business, how often our presses are sitting idle and how much time there is. So the opportunity to open up an entirely new line of business for us, which is taking outside metal stamping. Typically, we've only been serving our own needs and our own products, but what can we do for other people? And then just sort of continuous improvement, culture gain towards, 5S and looking at other ways to streamline operations. So that's one of our pillars. Another, in terms of no bottlenecks, is really standardizing our work process. And that can look like all new training protocols for us. So writing down all of our work instructions on paper, videotaping all of our work instructions, presenting them in English and Spanish, and also the ability to translate into other languages as needed. And I'll tell you, AI is a huge benefit for this type of thing. I mean, we've discovered programs that can just take a video that we've created. It can change it into any language automatically. It can make my face look like it's talking in French when I'm talking in English. It's quite amazing what AI will do. And so that's going to be a huge benefit for us in terms of tribal knowledge in our company, because when you have an older company and a lot of long-time seasoned workers, a lot of stuff just exists in their head. So we've got to get ahead of that. Real-time monitoring, tracking. We're tracking all of our machinery now as a result of this, and we're tracking exactly all uptime, all downtime, number of pieces being produced. We're just collecting tons of data at this point, trying to understand all of that. And then hoping that in terms of being able to utilize some of this is going to help us to kill bottlenecks. We don't at the moment, candidly, have a lot of bottlenecks, but as soon as we double our business and then triple it, we can be sure they're going to appear. So we're just trying to get ahead of that before it starts to show up. A single source of truth and data-driven decision-making. A lot of these items all sort of cross over each other and all come back to the same place, which is you've got to really understand what you're doing and what is going on in order to be able to make the right decisions. So, I first joined the company, I started looking heavily into robots and robotics for of our repetitive tasks. But the reality became that the cost of the robot compared to the amount of, even though we were doing 80,000 of something, it still didn't justify a robot to do that for us. So really understanding where the problems are and the bottlenecks are before you start to make major investments like that is critical. And then working with our staff when we're talking about training and work instructions and all of that, making sure that they're making good real-time decisions out on the floor. Because as we start to get more staff and things start to pick up and go faster, people are going to need to be trusted more to make decisions in real time. Right now, that looks like we are, just as a matter of fact, today approved 2 employees to go back to school on our dime and get further training in tool and die making, which is a critical piece for us. That's a very difficult role to fill. And so we're going to upskill some of our workers for that. And then in terms of smooth operations, are there any processes that we should automate? And we don't want to automate something and then it creates a bottleneck further downstream. So we're trying to make sure we're looking at that very aggressively and thoughtfully. And then transparent supply chain, making sure that we all went through COVID and we all, I'm sure, struggled with that. And, learned a lot of painful lessons from going through COVID. But one of the things that we want to do is make sure we're really in tight with our suppliers. One of the things that we did as a result of COVID was we probably doubled our number of vendors so that we have, essentially backup upon backup for products that we need, so that we have somebody, and we try to feed a little bit to each person, here and there to make sure we're keeping those relationships fresh and that we have a relationship with them. So, those are some of the elements of the pillars. When I look at, what's underway now and what's up next as a result of this process, and it's really transformed the way we are thinking about our business and the way we're making decisions on what to do next. So, we launched what we're calling our Vision 200 program based on the entrepreneurial operating system. But we're using this Vision 200 as we head into our 200th anniversary as a way to align our entire staff on our growth, make sure everybody's aware of where we're headed. And then each person's going to be held accountable for certain numbers and certain deliverables with scorecards and dashboards and other numbers that we're reviewing on a weekly and or monthly basis, depending on the numbers. One of the things I remember calling Craig and Jim and saying, "Oh, I'm looking at this NetSuite, and I'm thinking, I really want to do that." And Craig and Jim were saying, "Well, you might be getting out over your skis a little bit here. We got to figure out what data it is you want to track and exactly what's going to be most important to you. And then we're going to work to come up with a ERP system that, is best suited for your needs and your company." And, that's part of eventually getting there, understanding the dashboards and what we want to track and the actual numbers and the metrics that we're trying to hit is going to be critical for helping us to pick the right ERP system. As I've said, we're creating a full library of written work instructions and videos in both English and Spanish. We have Bosnian and Somalian speakers in our factory, so if need be, we'll be able to translate into that as well. When we first started on this process, Craig was laughing the other day. He said, "You were firmly against ISO certification and we're too small and we can't take that on." And, we've done a 180 on that, and we recognize that not only do we have to do it, but we think we can do it now. And I think that's a big mindset change for us is believing that we can manage the paperwork and the tracking and the information and all of that goes along with ISO certification. So that's kind of new for us. So we're starting down the path of that. We're tracking, like I said, the data of all of our equipment so that we can understand bottlenecks and what capacity we really truly have. So, we think we understand exactly how much throughput we can put in our factory right now, but we're making sure we understand that fully. We've been going on road tours, and we've been meeting with all of our vendors in person and going and touring their facilities and really understanding their capacity and how they can meet our needs, and also just trying to further strengthen our relationship with them so that we are a person they want to service first. If things start to go awry, we're hopefully going to be one of the preferred customers that get taken care of. And the same thing with customers in terms of trying to shore up some of our better customers and then hopefully expanding that to new customers. We are going to be taking our own course and ourselves conducting a value stream mapping. We were talking about subbing that out to somebody and paying somebody else to do it, but we think it would be a great exercise for us to learn how to do that and to really understand all that goes along with it. So we're going to be doing that. I mentioned we're sending 2 employees back to school for advanced education in tool and die. We're researching constantly different equipment upgrades for greater efficiency, and how can we either take the equipment that we have and make it work harder for us, or if we're going to need to invest in new equipment, what might that be? And that's a lot of this data tracking that we're doing. And then we're doing simple things like shadow boards and other 5S things and other organization within the factory that our employees have loved and have really responded well to. And are really adopting those changes. We've been holding meetings with each work team in the company to understand their frustrations and issues and what they see as opportunities or new ideas. So, simple things like that. So, in short, we've got a lot. And I think there's a lot of things on this list that I haven't listed, but it's been transformative for us, to say the least, in terms of how we look at, assess, and move forward with each of our initiatives and keeping everything moving forward. So I guess I'm happy to take questions if anybody has them or other thoughts.
I have a question, Cece. You said you had looked at robots, and then you paused, and you were looking at the cost versus the value in your priorities. How did that process happen before you started the roadmap, or that was part of the road mapping and evaluating your options?
That particular process started before the road mapping, and I think it is actually a very good example of sort of getting out over your skis, because it was just kind of a knee-jerk reaction to me seeing this person doing this horribly repetitive task a lot and thinking, my God, there's got to be a better way. But if all of the important things happening in the factory are all of the things that we could make an impact, that was probably, not a good place to start. And thankfully the numbers didn't support it anyway, so we didn't move forward with it.
Well, I applaud that, because we actually see robots collecting dust in some shops that didn't go through your due diligence there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've got Jeff Winter up next. Jeff, if you want to acknowledge that you're there.
Hear and see me?
So Jeff is going to talk a little bit